Welcome to the show. And our today's guest is the founder of Business Enjoyment, an international best-selling author, a multi-award-winning coach. He's also an international speaker and podcaster, and also the creator of Breathe, Breathing Spaces. And we welcome Andrew Millar to Please by Mahmoud. So how is your feeling today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's early morning, so I'm still sort of getting into that sort of waking up phase. Yeah, it's coming up to Easter as well, so we're going to have a break soon as well, and going to be catching up with a few people, and so it's at the moment all good, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So tell us about like how did everything got started and how did you started your journey?
Yeah, so my original background when I was in my corporate days is probably the best place to start. I was an accountant, hooray, which is always a good place to start, and but very specific form of accountant, and I was an insolvency practitioner, which it depends where your listeners are based and whether anybody sort of connects with the Commonwealth, Bangladesh, India, UK. There's a specific form that this works in. It's different to America. But if a company gets into financial difficulty, and goes insolvent, then accountants are often brought in to take over that company and run it. And that was my job, basically, to run businesses and keep them alive and hopefully sell them and keep them going as a trading entity. Doesn't always work, but in general, we're quite good at keeping that going. So I worked for one of the large accountancy firms, KPMG. I was there about 16, 17 years. And as I say, main job running businesses. And I did that in England, in Australia, and in the Far East, and all over the shop. So great experience in terms of running businesses. And then I sort of started drifting into other things. I got more into personal development because I was obviously leading teams and having roles where I was working with people on their inner stuff. And I found that more interesting, and I can't get into that sort of space a lot more. And when I decided to leave my career and move down into the sort of the coaching space, I started off with a very specific niche, and that was helping business owners that were going through an insolvency, going through the pain of losing their business, deal with the emotional stress that creates. Because whilst there are some people who are crooks or incompetents or whatever it might be, the majority of business owners are good and well-intended people, good-hearted people doing their best, and then circumstances happen that put them in difficulty. They normally put themselves last and try and help everybody else, but then they get the blame, then they feel bad about themselves, they lose confidence and all these sort of things. And it's like losing a child when you see the emotional connection there is between somebody and their business, and what happens when they lose it, it really brings it out. And so there wasn't really any support for people for the grieving process of losing a business, and that's what I tried to do. So as well as the business side of thing, it was also getting very deep into the emotional, psychological stuff that I was getting involved with as well. And then as things developed, and I wrote books in that area, and I'd speaking to government to try and set up schemes in that area and that kind of thing. But as I was meeting other business owners and working with other business owners in different spaces, in healthier spaces when they were doing well, interesting patterns I was noticing. So somebody who's just lost their business, they're not in a great place. They're really not enjoying life, as you can imagine. But I was meeting people who were doing quite well, really well, and they weren't enjoying their business either. I mean, they would love the thing that they do, but all the stuff around it was causing them stress and anxiety, including people who were millionaires getting treated for depression because sales were down this month, And it just made me think, hang on a sec, this doesn't make sense. Why are you in business? Because if you just want to earn money, there's lots of ways you can do that. It's your business. You create what you want to create. And if you're, and it's normally built around something we love, as I say. But what we tend to do is we bring in patterns from the past. We get caught up in our own fears and all the rest of it. We mirror things that we've seen in places we've worked before, and we end up building prisons for ourselves and traps for ourselves. And we end up not enjoying the thing that we do. And I think if you're going to run your own business and you're designing and creating your own business and doing what you want to do, then at the absolute minimum, you should enjoy it. And for me, that's where the concept of business enjoyment came from.
Yeah, really interesting. So the first thing that I heard was like, you said like being an accounting is a good place to start, but why?
Slight sarcasm there, and it might be a cultural thing. In this country, accountants are the one of those industries where, let's just say, if you meet an accountant at a party, you tend to sort of like step away slowly and go and find somebody more interesting instead. And those that did hang around are certainly scared off. As when I mentioned I was an insolvency practitioner, they just imagine I've got a cowl on and carrying a scythe, going, "Hello, step into my parlour." So yeah, bit of sarcasm.
Oh, interesting. Oh yeah, okay. I'm very new.
But seriously, it's a good grade. I mean, I'm a mathematician by background. I'm numerate and that kind of thing. And it is good training. It's good discipline. You do get a good understanding of broad business concepts. But I never considered that what I did to be an accountancy is useful to have that background to understand the numbers and how they work. But my job was running businesses. It was commercial decisions. It was firefighting most of the time. It was having to really think strategically and tactically and in the moment at the same time, and dealing with whatever was in front of you at that moment, and quick decision making all the time.
Yeah, very cool actually. So I'm very weak in, like, I don't know almost anything about accounting, but I'm learning. So how does accounting connect to business? So let's say you said your main role came in like as an insolvency practitioner, when people were about to sell their business or are going bankrupt, let's say, and that process. So you have to take care of every single thing of the business so it runs properly. So how does training or like education as an accountant helps to manage everything on the business?
For starters, it's to be an insolvency practitioner. I'm just trying to think of my own head now, but essentially it was either a legal requirement that you're an accountant or certainly very heavily suggested. And I think there are a few exceptions. But the reality is essentially what you're doing is looking at a company as an asset. And this is one thing that's actually useful when or try to understand with somebody who's losing their business. What we tend to do is we tend to very much, I say, mostly connect with our business and see that I find it hard to differentiate between the two. We are our business type thing. But as an accountant and understanding what a business is, we recognize that the separation between the two, that a business is it's a number at company's house. It's a series of assets and liabilities, and you can distinguish it as a separate thing. So what happens when a company gets into difficulty? You have a bunch of assets available, and our job is to convert them into money. And that's either by selling the business in its entirety, or realizing individual assets. So we need to understand what the assets are, what the liabilities are. We need to deal with all the people that are owed money, deal with all the money that's coming in. We need to be able to tell people what's happened in the past and go through, try and understand why the company went bust in the first place. Where did they lose their money? And what decisions do they make? So it's all getting involved with the numbers, the assets, the balance sheet, the profit and loss, where the cash has gone. It's all in that accounting space. But it's broader than that. You have to get involved with the legal stuff. You have to get involved with the HR stuff. You have to get involved with the marketing. You have to get involved with the processes. You have to get involved with all the other bits as well. But at the base, it's understanding exactly what the numbers are to be able to take things forward. And that's why accountancy is very heavily associated to it in our business.
Very cool. So, so if a business person want to get efficient on the accounting side or like get the skills of an accounting, so how can he get that? So, which resources can you suggest to get those skills?
Well, there's lots. There's a lot of people who go into business who are very entrepreneurial and know their trade, and again it's different the world round, but certainly in this country and and some other countries I know, that there's a lot of people who are scared of numbers, don't like maths, they just go blind. They just, I don't understand the numbers. And the thing is, the numbers in a business are important because they tell you information. They tell you what's working, what's not working. And whether that's your marketing, and you know, when you send out so many marketing messages, you get so many responses, and what you're tracking your numbers in terms of sales to conversion to lead times and all these sort of things. Having an understanding of the metrics of your business are important to know what's working and what's not working. It's essential, and part of that is the cash and the assets and that kind of thing. So a lot of people are quite scared of the numbers, but they need to be aware of them. Now, there's either something they take on themselves, and there's so much out there now in terms of software packages and low level of training that can give you the basic information. You don't need to be a whiz at it. It's just, know the basics. So you can get quite a lot of free training on it, or you work with someone who is very good with numbers and make sure that they give you the key bits of information that you need to be able to run your business so that you can make decisions based on the data that's available to you.
Okay.
But if it's not your strength, don't force it. That's the key thing. It's always, you want to know enough to know what you need to know, like any project management situation. Any project manager doesn't need to know everything in detail, but they need to know enough to understand when someone's hoodwinking them or to ask the right questions or whatever it might be. So it's always worth knowing something about it. But if it's not your bag, then get someone else to do the real detail. And you focus on the stuff you're really good at.
Okay. So what about, I'll give myself an example. So I want to learn, so I'm not really bad at numbers. So I want to learn let's say on accounting, like on various other topics as well, but let's say only on accounting. So like the thing I'm aiming to do is like, I've got a bunch of books, and then I'm going to read it and then understand through it. That's my goal. So what would be your suggestion? Who is for a person who is me, who is, let's say, good with numbers, not extremely good or not very bad, quite good, decent, you can say, and to go from knowing almost nothing in accounting to having proper understanding. So like not just average, but a good understanding in accounting side for running a business properly.
Big question. Well, first off, it's worth having a software package, an accounting software package, and there are free ones out there. There's Crunch Accounting, there's Wave, there's Billy, which is a Danish one, which is weird. But then you've got the ones that you pay for. So you've got like Sage, Xero, Cashflow. They're a bit more expensive, but if you're starting out and you don't have much in the way of funds, it's worth having those as a place to put the information, because they do a lot of the detailed stuff behind the scenes. It's worth understanding what the reports that they produce are, principally the profit and loss account, the balance sheet, the cash flow statements. So you understand what they mean and what they work. So that's you can, if you just Google those phrases, there will be stuff on the internet that will just give you some basic training. The key thing next is you want to work out what the most important numbers are for you. So if you're trying to, you've got to think how the cash flows through your business and what actions you're taking that will influence that cash. So where's the money coming from? Where are the costs going out? What actions are you taking to make changes on that? So the marketing efforts you do, you're in marketing. So there's several, there are probably some key numbers. How many people are visiting your website is a key number, and how many people are actually downloading whatever you've got to download. So there's going to be certain bits which are non-financial, but they're still very important numbers. And then within the cash itself, it's like, how much cash am I holding? There's just a key number there. And taking into account what money's coming in, or what's your conversion rate, or what's the profit figure, or what's my average earnings per hour. It would be different for every business. Is trying to just think of understanding your own business well enough to know what the half a dozen key numbers are that, if they improve, knowing what's good and what's bad, is going to improve your business overall. And then you can just focus on those. You can create a little report and say, right, let's just make sure, how do I generate that number each month, and how's it going? Is it getting better, or is it going down? And then you're giving high level information to let you know whether you're going in the right direction or not. And then you see if it's steering off course, you can then say, okay, we've got an issue. What do I need to do to bring it back online?
Okay, got it.
But it's different for every business. That's the thing. It's not blanket. So it's worth understanding how the things come together. But you've got to think about your own business in detail, how it flows through, and what the key points are to be able to pull out those numbers for yourself.
Okay, got it. That's a really good, really precise advice. And so moving on to the next topic. So when was, like, as you mentioned, like you saw other business owners who were actually losing their businesses, and they had two type of emotions. One who were, let's say, like who were actually very sad, and who were actually happy. So what was the turning point, or let's say at which point did you realize that you don't want to stay as insolvency practitioner and turn to like helping people with their purpose? Like, which was the turning point?
Yeah, there was a training session I was on. I'd just been promoted, and they were doing a celebratory kind of team bonding exercisey type thing for all the people who'd been promoted that year. And they did lots of different things, but there was one class exercise, and the person running it, who turned out they were a coach. I'd never heard of the word coaching before. And he got us to do an exercise which a lot of people will be familiar with, but it was new to me. And what he said, write down on a bit of paper all the things that are important to you, your values, essentially, the things that you hold to be dear. And then on another bit of paper, write down the values of the company. And we had a poster on the wall with the firm values written on. He said, not them, not the ones they've written on the wall, the ones that you actually perceive. And the intention behind the exercise is to see how they compare and find ways of getting them closer together. And I wrote mine down, and I looked at them, and I thought, do you know what? You'd expect there to be at least one the same. And they were so far apart, it just made me realize, oh yeah, I don't actually enjoy what I do anymore. And suddenly looking back at this point, must have been about 12, 13 years, because it took me a while to get out. Yeah. I realized that I never really enjoyed what I was doing. There's some times it was great, and it was a brilliant experience, and it sets you on fire at times when you're really in the zone. But it is a general whole, I wasn't enjoying it. But because it's a job and it's a career, you're kind of programmed as a child. Of course, you're not going to enjoy your job. You don't enjoy it. You go to work. Work is not enjoyable. It's just like you just got to do it to earn money. And I realized that certain things I'd done were like moving to Australia and working on secondment and banks and these kind of things had actually been ways of sort of trying to run away from it subconsciously, but without actually taking the big enough step to actually leave. And again, when I started speaking to other people about it, I found that just about everybody else I spoke to didn't enjoy what they were doing either. It's something you had to do. You had to force yourself through life in order to retire. It's just this sort of crazy system. And so it took a while for me to work out what I did want to do, and understanding coaching and moving into that space and making the decision to leave. But ultimately that was where it shifted. That was the point where I knew I had to leave.
Yeah, that's really, like, it's really great that you had that experience, that you were able to turn your career like completely. And so, like, most of your colleagues who were working with you, like, I think they're still working in the sector, right? Not most, or if not most, but many were still working as insolvency, like, or the jobs they're not liking or hating in a sense. Yeah. So that's really good.
And not just so. I mean, I was speaking to people in other divisions as well. It's very rare to find somebody doing a salaried, employed, paid job, not an entrepreneur, but someone that's just doing a paid job that says, I absolutely love what I do. It's a very rare thing, and people and also society doesn't expect it to happen either. It does happen, it does exist, but it's a rarity.
Yeah. So how rare is it? So like 1 in 1,000 or 100,000. Yeah.
I mean, it probably varies across the board as well. But I spoke to someone gave me a statistic that's something like probably 20% maybe actually sort of kind of enjoy what they do. So there's 80% that are disengaged with work, I think the statistic was, which is a high number. And this might be in America, but principles stand. And it'll be different by culture, it'll be different by country. So there's where people are in certain standings is going to shift, and there's certain needs that drive certain things and all the rest of it. But globally, I wouldn't know what the number was.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. Got it. It varies. It varies depending on the location, the culture, or everything. Yeah. So now, like in the process of like from, let's say, your realizing point to becoming a professional coach. So who were your biggest influencer? Let's say 3 biggest influencers in the process from realizing to becoming actually a coach.
Well, one person who, I guess, was a bit of a catalyst, a guy called John. He was he worked at KPMG. So there was a point where I had identified that coaching was what I wanted to do, and KPMG had a coaching function, and we managed to wangle it basically so that I went on secondment to HR, which the coach, human resources, which the coaching function was part of. And I was working with John, who's the director for the firm of coaching. He was the head of coaching for KPMG, basically, in the UK. And we had just merged our practice with Germany. And we had a number of policies which had inspired me to get into personal development and the role that I'd had. And so John had been instrumental in making it happen in this country. And Germany said, we want that as well. It was all about making sure that the people are looked after, that the people of this consulting firm are treated as assets, not just slaves that get paid well. And so I was brought on board to be a consultant because I'd done that job. And whereas John was the person that had done the theory and I'd done the practice kind of thing. But it was always done with the intention of, okay, we've got this sort of 6-month project, but behind the scenes, we're going to work together and he's going to help me shift out of insolvency and into coaching. So it got this point where basically I saw it. I got out. I wanted to get out, and I got pretty much into what I wanted to get into. It was just I had to get through a process. We had to go through what we needed to go through, and then we'll start moving. So that was, happy days and all the rest of it. Except John got cancer and died. And as a consequence of that, because I'd arranged the deal with John, nobody else knew about it, and I ended up being shipped straight back to insolvency not long at the end of the 6-month contract, and all the doors shut, and I didn't get what I wanted to do. But I went to his funeral, and I don't know if you've ever done one of these exercises where people recommend that you think about your own funeral, think about what you want people to say about you. You imagine you're on your deathbed, or imagine at your own service, and you can, what would you want people to say about you at the end of your life, kind of thing. And it was kind of weird because it was almost like I was at what I saw with going on, what people were saying about him. It's like, well, it was inspiring, if you know what I mean. That is like, people were saying, this guy has changed my life. I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been for what he'd done. There was so much love for this person, and that had come through his coaching, and that's what that's what he was. He'd changed people's lives, and you're just in this space where you're missing someone, and there's the grief, but there's also this out of body experience where you just feel, yeah, that feels more real. That feels like you've lived a life that means something, rather than just done a job or just tick some boxes. You've really changed people's lives. So, ironically, losing John scuppered my career in that direction, but actually inspired me in other ways and opened the door for me to leave and set up my own business, essentially, because there was no career path. So very bittersweet in hindsight. But yeah, that would certainly be one of the main ones.
It's really sad to hear that. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So after him, so like, were there any other influencers in your life?
I think we're influenced by everybody in some way, shape, or form. So it's very hard to really pin anything down. There's a couple of individual coaches that I've worked with and read that have been inspiring, and there's no point going into them unless you're a coach. It won't really be relevant. I've always been, for various reasons, sort of one of those people who's kind of done everything they've set themselves type of thing. I'll absorb and work with people and take things on and adapt and improve and that kind of thing. But I've kind of been self-reliant, which is not necessarily a good thing, by the way. That's not a boast. That could be a problem and hold me back. In some situations, it's really useful, and others, it's a real hindrance. And so whilst I'll pick things up from people, it's very much a case of absorb stuff, but then I've really processed things myself. So I've been quite self-reliant. So I've never really had a main mentor. I've never had somebody that I've followed or looked up to or said that's the person that they've had, not even in the family or anything like that. I've never really had someone that's been my shining light, so to speak. But there's always a few pockets bouncing around of some people. But yeah,
that's. As you think, it's not bad to have, let's say, like, learning from other people. Like, that's one of the 3 learning processes.
And I think sometimes I get a little, what's the word, cynical, frustrated, whatever. But when I see somebody who is totally idolizing another person, I'm thinking, maybe that's going a bit too far, because no one person is perfect for what you need. So there'd be elements of that person. I mean, I remember, 10, 15 years ago, if you read just about any American business book, they'll be going about how great Donald Trump is. He was like this, and he was the person that every single management book talked about as being the best of what he does and all that kind of thing. I suspect not so many now, even though they might believe it, they won't write it. But and this is the thing: you look at Donald Trump, and actually, there are some. You can look at some of the stuff that he's done and say, yeah, that's good. I get that. I understand that. And I can take that, but I don't have to take everything else that comes with it. Flip side, you'll have somebody who's like I'll use Gandhi as an example. Everyone looks at Gandhi as being all the rest of it. And there are some amazing things that he's done. Yes, take those amazing things, but there's a dark side as well. There's some other bits that doesn't get mentioned quite so much or whatever. It's like, well, we don't need to take that. So we don't need to idolize the individual. We can find the bits that are important to us and make them relevant to us and use those or integrate them within ourselves and make it our version of that. But I think there's a risk in just finding one person saying that's what you want to be, because they won't be the full package.
Absolutely. So yeah, as you said, like, it's better to idolize the elements, not the person. Like, we can have that essential element that's good, and we can learn from that, but not the person, because no one is perfect. No one's got.
And neither should anybody try to be perfect.
Yeah.
Let's throw that one. That's fine. And it's
that's life.
Life's a jigsaw puzzle, and it's just picking out the bits that you need from the area, various different piles to build the picture that you want to create.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Now we're moving to a very connected topic, which is like, let's say, what is, like, we're talking about purpose and like life, say. And so, like, the most connected topic is purpose. So what is purpose to you, and why is it important to have a purpose in life?
So when I was trying to work out, once I'd established the concept of business enjoyment, and that's all it was when I first came up with it, I had to sort of really work, well, what does that actually mean? What does that look like? How does it come about? And spent a long time trying to, start off with a good year. It was just a name. That was it. There was just, okay, we've got to enjoy it. Well, that's good. What does that mean? How do you do that? And I got reintroduced to a model which I'd known for many years, which many people will be familiar with, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I read various books as to it's a way of how our motivations are structured and the things that drive us and give us enjoyment in life and that kind of thing. And it's used a lot as a motivation tool or understanding people in all sorts of situations. And at a base level, you've got to look after yourself first. You've got to know whether get food on the table, know where your next meal's coming from, put a roof over your head, very, very basic stuff. And then you've got to find belonging and be part of a community, find your tribe, that kind of thing. And then you've got to get the sense of esteem and know that you're doing good, that you're contributing to that tribe. So these are sort of the basic levels. And I recognize that these all actually map out in business as well. And actually both in business terms and in personal terms. So when we talk about I use the belonging bit, the find your tribe bit. On the business side of it, there's all the marketing, the avatar, the ideal client, all these sort of things. But on the flip side of it, on the personal side, there's also the fear of rejection, the authenticity. You've got to reveal who you are in order for your right ideal client to recognize you and come in. So there's at every level, there's this sort of business and personal. That's where the business enjoyment model kind of comes from. But at the top, Maslow talks about self-actualization. And that is a phrase which most people go, what? Don't even know what that means. And so I was trying to understand what that was. And after much thinking about it, it's like, actually, this self-actualization, it's about having a direction, a focus, something that's meaningful, and it's a sense of purpose. Why are we on this planet? Why are we doing what we do? What's the direction we're going in? And when I look back at the first book I wrote, which was interviewing people that had gone bust and the pain and trauma that they'd gone through and how they got through it and the advice they'd give to people going through that now, is that actually I've written a lot about it now. And these people who'd lost absolutely everything realized that getting into business, it wasn't about when they first got in, they thought about being your own boss, having your own time, having the fast cars and the big houses and the posh suits or whatever it might be. But having lost everything, they realized that was not what it was about. And it was, and actually they got back up on their feet again because they found something that was important to them, that drove them in a different way, that was more meaningful. And reading a book, which again, it's a very well-known book, a lot of people know, but if you're not familiar with it, then I do recommend everybody reads it and read it many, many times. It's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was a psychoanalyst that was put in the concentration camps in Germany in the Second World War. And again, him noticing how that those that survived mentally were those that had something to live for. They had a meaning in life, and it started to explore what meaning really is. So in difficulty times, this sense of purpose, this meaningful purpose, is a thing that gets you through. On the flip side of it, when I'm talking about those, remember I was talking about those miserable millionaires that they had everything, they had all they ticked all the boxes of success. They hit all the basic levels of Maslow. They felt safe. They had the right people around them. They were doing good stuff, but they don't have a sense of purpose. That's what they're missing. And when you bring everything together and it all connects, it lifts everything up. So even if everything's fine, if you're in a great place, it's all good, but there's still another 20-30% over and above that is untapped, which when you get connected with purpose, just brings a whole new dimension to what you do. And when you're pursuing that mission that's meaningful and purposeful to you, then enjoyment, and when we talk about business enjoyment, it's a consequence of that, because you're quicker into flow. You're doing the thing that's your life's work, and enjoyment is a natural consequence of that, rather than a manufactured thing which will never be achieved if you try looking for it. So enjoyment comes a consequence of having found that purpose.
Okay. So overall, on the simplest point, our purpose is basically why do you exist, right? So like why are you here? Like that's basically the one line definition of purpose, right?
Yeah, and it's slightly different to what is your why or why you do what you do, but it's because you're familiar with Simon Sinek's Find Your Why, possibly, and that's an important element of it. And so the meaning's an element of it, and there's a thing called Ikigai you might be familiar of, and those are elements of it. But yeah, if you not put it down into one line, it's what's the reason that you were put on this planet?
Okay, got it.
Why are you here? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm getting the I do have as you mentioned the name of the pyramid, or as you
the Maslow.
Yeah, Maslow. Yeah. So I'm unfamiliar with the name, but I do have an idea of a pyramid where the top is, I guess, the purpose, and there was another term which was I forgot. There was another term with purpose, and at the bottom there was security, safety, and food security and safety, and this thing. I think that's what Mazda is. So I know it, but I'm unfamiliar with the name. Yeah,
it's one of those things I got taught it in my accountancy exams. I could have probably told you the levels, but never really thought about it. And in a quiz, what are the 6 levels of 5 levels of Maslow? And I could have probably just about recited them, but never really thought about it. And the hierarchical element of it is challengeable. Sometimes we float around. I'm not too obsessed about it having to be in order, because if you can get your purpose first, you can battle through everything else. Okay. But it's when you do look at it, you think, oh yeah, makes a lot of sense, really. and it's a great framework just to think about things, to explore things.
Yeah. So how can a person who doesn't know his purpose, so how can he find his purpose? So,
well, one of the things that's counterintuitive to everything I've just said is he shouldn't force it. There's a lot of pressure out there in terms of, you must find your why, you must find your purpose, you must get your reason, and all the rest of it. And it's like, everyone's like, oh my God, I can't find my purpose, I'm a failure. No, forget that. Take your time, relax, allow yourself to live, open your mind to look for it. Be curious and passionate, and unpeel your life and unpeel your journeys and explore, but don't try and force it. Allow it to come to you, because it will be there. It's just a case of discovering it. And you're a young lad. My message to you is, just park that, keep your mind open for it, but go and do stuff, go and try stuff, find out what you like, find out what you don't like, make mistakes, mess up, and then every now and again stop and look back and look at the patterns that have evolved over time, and start pulling together, gather information, start working out why that was important to me, why do I feel connected to that, and how can I do more of that, and what might that look like going forward, and just play in that space. And people talk a lot about purpose changes over time, particularly when we start having families and as the family grows up and that shifts. So when we're young, families aren't important. Then we get married and they are, and then the kids go away and they're less so again. And so people say it changes. And my view is that actually, no, these are just different ingredients and different perspectives of the same thing. The underlying thing is always there. We're just gathering information. I've developed I hesitate to use the word definition, because that suggests everything needs to be in place. I use the term elements, but a definition of purpose, should we say, which picks out different things. So if you're happy for me to share that, and this comes from my own experience and what I've done and touching other people, I'll run through it. So for me, it's a purpose with a capital P, rather than, you can find purpose in playing a football match or whatever it might be, or a cricket match. That gives me a sense of purpose, but that's a small P. So purpose, why we're on this planet. So for me, purpose is a meaningful mission. And when I say meaningful, this comes from the Viktor Frankl sense of basically it's for the benefit of somebody else primarily. It doesn't stop us benefiting, but we're thinking, how can we change the life of somebody else? So it's a meaningful mission that's important to you. And by that, I mean, we're not comparing to other people. We're not sort of going, oh, your mission's more important than mine and mine feels insignificant. It's like, if it's important to you, that's what counts. Stuff the rest. So it's a meaningful mission that's important to you that might not even be achievable. In other words, we're not actually attached to the outcome, but just moving in the direction of where we're going is producing results and worth doing, even if we never actually get there. World peace may not be achievable, but everything that we can do that gets us closer towards it is going to create a better world. So a meaningful mission that's important to you may not be achievable. Based on or around passionate, stimulating work. So obviously, we're enjoying that thing at the center of it. Positively driven by a deep personal why, and that positive is very important. So again, back to those miserable millionaires, there's a lot of people, really, really successful people, who are driven by the fear of losing everything. So at the heart of it, there's something that's triggered them off, that's really given them their why, and they are going to say, I will never be in that place where, like my dad when he lost everything, or whatever it might be. But it's coming from a negative place. So the more that they achieve, the more that they get, the more money they make, the more miserable they get, because actually it's a negative energy that's coming from. So we've got to work on that and make that a positive response. So it's a meaningful mission, important to you, may not be achievable, based on or around passionate, stimulating work, positively driven by a deep personal why, wrapped up in your own story. And that's why you need to live life a little bit to start uncovering things, to find out what your story is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So how can a person can turn that negative energy, like that, the things that's come from a negative side, so how can he turn that negative energy to positive energy, or like how can he
you've got to find it first, which is again kind of coming back to why, but and sometimes it's using therapeutic techniques or positive reframing, or it kind of depends. So I had to go through a few kind of inner child sort of conversations and stuff where I was hugging my 4-year-old self and making him feel better and all the rest of it. But it's taking it's finding that thing where the energy comes from, and it's that difference between running away from something, being scared of something, being fearful, versus excellent, I've got an opportunity where I can help other people. This is something that can broaden spectrum, that have a more yellowy, warmy glow to it. That you're encouraged to do something. So you need to be if it's a towards motivation rather than an away from motivation, then you've got your positive energy. But yeah, normally means going quite deep. It's not just a I've read it in the book, that's the answer. It's going to require, and again, this is why these things aren't I go back to that point about I must find it now. If you put the pressure on, you won't, because it needs to come out when it's ready. You need to find these things when they're ready to be uncovered. And if that comes sooner, then great. The more we're open to it, the more we're looking for it, fantastic. But again, you can't force it.
Yeah. So what process do you use, like with your clients right now, to actually help them find it?
To help them find it?
Yeah, like find their purpose, or let's say you can turning their native energy or true positive energy, like
I mean, the point of that definition is to work out, well, what do you think you've got, what's missing, what's not energized. That gives us an area to investigate. So it'll be a lot of exploring over there, looking at, like I said earlier on, in terms of looking back at the patterns over life. Where are we making decisions, and where that our decisions, and where are we doing things because a parent thought we should do it, or society says that's the thing you ought to do, and we're not actually choosing the right things. What are the values? What are the things that give us the joy? What are the things that give us the pain? What makes us cry for positive and negative reasons? It's back to that jigsaw image. It's pulling together lots of different pieces, and ultimately, if we can find the things that are important, that feel important, and start building up the concepts, then at the same time understand what the key thing is at the base that happened when we were 4 years old or whatever it was that fundamentally shifted the way we saw the world. Then we can target in on that. And as I say, whether it's some inner child work where you picture your younger self in that vulnerable situation, but you come from the position of strength that you have now as an adult, and actually have a conversation with yourself and actually find out because we're just bits of the brain working within each other. We're all, we are the culmination of all our younger selves, and it's opening up the synapses and rediscovering paths that have been blocked off, so that we can discover new ways of being. So we're no longer trapped by the patterns that have been created from the past, which were there to protect us, but hold us back now at the same time. So sometimes in a child work, sometimes there's belief shifting that you can do through tapping and various things of that nature, and kinesiology, and there's lots of different ways. Even eye movement therapy. Lots of different things. Other people use hypnotherapy. That's I'm not a hypnotherapist and NLP and these sort of things. That's not my area, but there's lots of different ways of reshaping. But it's find it first and then look for the process.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. Cool. So now, so I have one question that I always ask. So we're almost at the end, yeah. So what is learning and education to you?
Education, I think, is learning how to learn. So when I think of what I learned at school and at university and all the various things, really what I was doing was building the mental strength and the disciplines in order to learn what I wanted to learn. Very little knowledge from school still sits in my head. It's almost, it's almost irrelevant, most of the stuff, but the techniques of learning are there. Learning itself is finding the things that are relevant and useful to you, and understanding them to the point where you can actually make use of them and then do that thing. If we know something, we understand something, but we're not doing that thing, then we haven't really learned it. If we're not living that life. I know that's, if you asked me to recite the capitals of the world, I was able to do it. Okay, that's rote learning, that's factual learning. But in terms of, for me as an entrepreneur, as someone that's integrating into their life, it's like if I learn something and I live that, then I have learned it. And the education allows me to be able to learn faster and quicker.
Okay, so did you learn how to learn on schools, through school or colleges, let's say?
Yeah, and as I got higher and higher and went through different things, new techniques came up and new ways, and you start absorbing it. I think the last set of formal exams I did, which were the insolvency exams, I learned ways of learning which would have been really useful 20 years ago. And using mind maps and visuals and imagery and that kind of stuff to retain information. But, that concept of going away, doing some research, looking around it, picking bits out, formulating a response, putting it away, something forward in a logical way, understanding the detail, not taking stuff on face value, all these things that I think are very relevant now when we get all the fake news going on and the stuff that just flies by on social media, and the ability to challenge. Let's not just accept everything on face value. And because if you can, it's being told something, it can sit in front of your eyes and your conscious memory can recite it. But as I say, it doesn't sit inside. If you can challenge it and work it out and understand the mechanics of how this thing came about and explain it to A, yourself, and B, to someone other than you, then you're starting to integrate it. And, knowing that, Dhakar's the capital of Bangladesh or whatever it might be. Well, do I know how it became the capital? Do I know how Bangladesh was formed? Do I know all about the partition of India? Do I know how that happened? Do I know how Britain got in there and the Mughals, and how far do I go back? Do I understand how this thing is built up from a whole history of stuff? And that's more important than just knowing a capital. That makes sense.
Yeah, certainly does. Yeah, that's a good broad way of education and learning. Yeah. So now, why did you decided to write More Than Just Money, the book?
Yeah. So, I will touch on my mission in life is to change the way that success is measured in business. That's the thing I'm trying to achieve. Having seen what happens, and when you just focus on making money, which is the current measure of success in business, then I've seen what happens. I've seen what happens when people can be really successful and be very miserable at the same time, and the pressure of not having enough money and all this kind of stuff. I'm all in favor of money. I don't have an issue making money. All big thumbs up to money, but it's when we just focus on that's the problem. And I'm all the various things I do. The breathing spaces you mentioned at the beginning is a community of people who are all on the same page, and I've got many things that I'm trying to do, which all sort of gear towards that. And part of that is spreading the message. Part of that is this is why we need to shift what we're doing. This is why we need to change what we're doing. And I had a regional idea for a book, which I've mapped out, and which is going to be the secret of business enjoyment and the meaning of life is the working title. And that ended up being huge. I started working on it. It's like, this is going to take me a long time and I need more data from the people I'm working with and whatever. So I decided, let's just bring a summarized version in. Just get the basic concepts across. And if anybody's interested in exploring that further or taking it further, then that's they can. There's ways that they can do that. And so that's what More Than Just Money about. It's there for the people. It's available on Amazon. People can buy it, but that's just a mechanism for buying it. I've made it available for people for free because it's my message. It's my mission.
Okay.
And it talks through the business enjoyment model, which we've lightly touched on, and the importance of purpose, and also how you can use that model to brainstorm and actually overcome or find a solution to pretty much any problem you've got. So there's lots of applications with it as well. So
okay, that's good. So the book another book that you mentioned. So are you still writing it now?
More Than Just Money is done.
No, another book that you mentioned.
The purpose doesn't contain the elements of purpose. That's evolved separately, and there are plans to. I've got an outline for a version of that as well, a book version of that. I do run a program on helping people find their purpose, and that will inform it as well. But that's not been released. The book around purpose hasn't been released yet. Or written yet. It's only sketched out. But More Than Just Money was completed last year, a couple of years ago. Lose track when 1 year of lockdown, you lose all track of time, don't you? Relatively recently, and it's available to anybody if they just go onto my website. They can just download it.
So what's your website?
www.businessenjoyment.com.
Okay,
so businessenjoyment.com. The pop-up will appear. Yes, you have to put your email address in. Oh my God, I'll have your details. But you get, I send like a bulletin out every couple of weeks just to update things. But there's 4 attached emails that come with anybody that downloads the book, which is basically they're all mainly free resources. A copy of my business cheat sheet, which I refer to in the book, which is everything you need to know about business on one side of A4. You get an invite to the Facebook group I run. Tell you about my podcast, which is interviews with people about what their purpose and their drive is, and then an invitation if interested to talk about the breathing spaces that I run, if that's something of interest and if it fits in, because they are accessed by invitation only, so it's not readily available in the shops, so to speak, to come to breathing space. It's for those people that are interested, but it's they're not expensive. So. I'd better say about building that community of people that want to work on themselves. If you understand yourself, you can understand your business better. And if you're in that position, you also want to help other people with their understanding so they can understand their business. So that's everybody helping each other, that collaborative approach.
Okay. That's a really good community to be a part of. Now, so like, what would you say like your vision in life is? Like, let's say 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? 5 or 10 years?
I want to create, well, first off, business enjoyment. The ideal is for every business owner to realize that enjoyment is an option that they can follow. They don't have to choose it, but as long as they're aware. And I want to create a place where people can come, those that do want to follow it can come to, where they will get everything they need in terms of business and personal development, because both are just as important as each other, in order to be able to create a successful business, but allow them to enjoy life and the journey at the same time. But my vision is I call it a website, but it's gonna be more than that. It's more like a computer game, but or more point and clicky and 3D, and maybe even visual headsets eventually, or whatever, that kind of thing. But you know, whether you've been or not, but I'm trying to think of an example, like Disney World or something, or whatever. You walk into this central plaza with all the exciting things around you, or even a shopping centre, whatever. But you have this central plaza. So you imagine walking into here, and there's going to be a route map and where to go, kind of thing. But on the left, you're going to have a bookshop. And in that bookshop will be all the books you need to be able to help you. Then there's going to be a video store where you have all the videos and the YouTube videos. There'll be a theatre where people are giving presentations. There'll be a first aid centre for anybody that needs urgent help. There'll be a cafe where people will network and meet and discuss and talk things. There'll be, so all these different things going on, and behind them will all be the different programs and stuff that will be a lot of it done by other people, not just by me. But we can create roadmaps. We can create whatever it is. And so people come in and get what they need there, and as part of that, as part of being a member of that sort of society, will also be we'll create a new stock exchange. And instead of the FT index or the Nikkei or whatever it might be, or Wall Street, that is all based on profits and whatever, we'll create a new way of measuring the value and the worth of a business, which is going to be based on the good that they do, the team spirit that they've got, and the money they make. We're part of it, but all the things that come out of business enjoyment, and a new way of measuring what's important. And we'll have this television screen on there instead of just the FT100 or whatever it is. You can see the good that you're doing, and we can measure success by a different way, and we'll create a new way of looking at businesses.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good vision. So I'm a few days ago, not a few days ago, I think a few months ago, I attended an online event where there was, like, I'm not sure, like it was called maybe Purple World, where when you create an account, you get like a person in the place, and you can roam around, and there are different places where you network, and there are different. I don't think there was a library or anything. Like, it's not as advanced as you mentioned, but you can roam around. There are other places other people who come here, and you can talk with other people. There is a mic. It's called Purple World, as I remember. Like, it's like they're working on it, or working on this thing, like on the technology that you mentioned. So it's not as advanced as you mentioned, but it is a good head start. So you
I'll
can
have a
look.
look. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I mean,
can have a look.
your question was 5-10 years in the future, so
Yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
there now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
people are
absolutely.
working on these things, and it's achievable. And I'm thinking of a networking event where we've got our VR headsets on and seeing people in 3D, and you can be in a room with people like you would be at a networking event, but you could be from the other side of the country doing that kind of thing, and walk up to an open two and tap somebody in the shoulder and say, "Can I come in?" And they'll go, "No, I'm a bit busy at the moment," or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so you're gonna have the full body. Like I think, like in 10 years, you are gonna have like a full body suit where you just wear it and you can create your online profile or like the whole avatar, and you're gonna like roam around with like you're in the
Absolutely.
home. Like I'm in Bangladesh right now, and I'm just working with you in a room in US or in an event, or let's say in China. Let's say, okay, so we're
Yeah.
not in the place, and we are in an event, and you're
And
talking
then
in
their
person.
profile
Yeah,
will come up. You can see them. You can click on their profile, come up. You see who they are, what they
yeah,
do, and you can send a little message to the equivalent of tapping. Yeah, why not?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That'll happen. It will happen. I mean, it just
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, the future is really cool if I stay alive. Yeah, I will. I hope I will. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So I think that was also any last word that you want to share.
I think just to pull together, I just think it's in the book, but it's worth remembering. As I said, the thing about purpose is a meaningful mission. It's not just about what can I get out of this. It's what can I do for other people. And as I said, no harm in you benefiting out of helping others, but it's primarily for that motive. And it's just a wrap up with the actual definition of enjoyment, because the phrase enjoy has shifted over the years, and it now means if I enjoy something, then I have got joy from an event. I feel joy, but it actually comes from French, and it comes from French, which is en joie, and it's like another word which is encourage, encourage. And if you're encouraging somebody, encourage, you're giving courage to that person, and that's what enjoyment actually means. En joie actually means to give joy to others, and that's where purpose comes from. And if you can go out and set somebody else's world on fire and make them excited and change their world, then your business is going to do well, and you'll enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah, that's really cool. That really is really awesome. And yeah, so now where can our listeners find you, listeners, or the people who are also watching on the video? So where they can find you online and offline?
So as mentioned before, there's the website, which is businessenjoyment.com, on LinkedIn, and it's Andrew Millar's not the rarest name on the planet, so stick business enjoyment on as well, and that'll come up. I've got my own podcast, which is called The Tingle Zone, and the tingle represents that sort of that buzz, that purpose, that excitement that you get. My strapline is, I want you to enjoy your business so much it makes your bits tingle, and the book explains why, what bits actually means. And so go on to the what else, my books are all on Amazon if you want to read any of those. I'm often going to Andrew R. Millar, because there's an actual proper author, fiction author that's won Whitbread prizes called Andrew Millar. So I distinguish myself by putting my R in my middle of the name. But you can link them all on my website. So go to the website, businessenjoyment.com. If you hunt around, you find links to everything on there anyway. Download the book. All good.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll add all the links with the bio and the description, or the description as well. And yeah, thanks again for coming on the show. Yeah.
No, thank you. It's been fun talking to you, and I hope you as I say, don't rush out. Don't feel under pressure to find your purpose. Just go out and have fun, explore, make mistakes, find good things, and uncover it as you develop.
Yeah.
And make sure you enjoy your journey.
Yeah. I'll try to. I'm trying to. Yeah. So that's how you end the podcast, and I'm sure listeners found this valuable. And yeah, and bye to the listeners and the watchers.
Thank you.